Friedrich Nietzsche was more than just a philosopher. He was a fire-starter of thought, a destroyer of comforting illusions. In his work, he didn't try to explain the world with feel-good theories. He tore through the veils, hiding the raw truth of existence. His ideas don't soothe, they provoke. They're not answers, they're challenges, and they demand courage, the kind it takes to face life without metaphysical crutches, without absolute truths, without guarantees. The 20 ideas gathered here reveal the beating heart of Nietzsche's philosophy. A fierce critique of traditional morality, blind faith in reason, and the herd mentality that would rather follow than create. Nietzsche doesn't just invite us, he dares us to let go of the comfort of conformity and see life as a battlefield of energy, where meaning isn't discovered, it's created. God is dead is more than a provocative line. Marks the end of universal certainties. With no ultimate truths left, it's up to the individual to reinvent themselves. Pain, suffering, loneliness. For Nietzsche, these aren't tragedies to be avoided, but raw materials for transformation, for building a stronger self. Disturbing, absolutely, but also freeing. Because for Nietzsche, to live is to dare, to become who you truly are, even if it means breaking with everything you were ever told. Have you ever stopped to think that everything you call reality might just be an interpretation? Not an absolute truth, but a filtered, shaped, and often distorted version of the world through your own perspective. Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most provocative and profound philosophers in history, challenges us with a phrase that, at first glance, might feel unsettling. There are no facts, only interpretations. But what does that actually mean? Nietzsche wasn't saying the world is some kind of fantasy. He didn't deny that things happen. What he questioned is how we understand what happens. Every fact has to go through a filter. Our language, beliefs, emotions, culture, and personal history. Nothing reaches us in a completely pure form. Reality is never neutral. It's always filtered. You don't see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. Imagine two people watching the same scene. A man yelling in the middle of the street. One sees aggression, the other sees desperation. Same event, totally different meanings. That's what Nietzsche is pointing to. We live in a sea of interpretations, and most of the time, we're handed those interpretations already made. From a young age, we're taught to see the world in a certain way, and we rarely question the lens we're looking through. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, where do my certainties come from? Why do I see some things as wrong and others as right? Why do I value what I value? A lot of what we call our opinion is actually inherited from culture, religion, family, society. Truth, then, is a construction, and every construction can be rebuilt. This idea connects Nietzsche to other great thinkers. Plato said our senses deceive us, and only reason gets us closer to truth. Kant went further, saying we never access the thing in itself, only what appears to us, shaped by the human mind. Nietzsche takes it even further. Truth is never neutral, pure, or objective. It's always a narrative, and often one, created to serve interests, power, control, keeping the system in place. Can you see how freeing this idea can be? If everything is interpretation, you're not stuck with someone else's version of reality. You can build your own. Even more, you can start questioning the truths that were imposed on you. But hold up. This isn't about falling into shallow relativism. Nietzsche's not saying anything goes. He's not giving permission to deny reality or live in a fantasy. What he's calling for is responsibility. Once you realize everything is interpretation, you become responsible for the ones you choose to live by. And here's where self-knowledge comes in. Only people who really know themselves can begin to understand how their own filters shape or limit how they see life. How many times have you interpreted a situation based on fear, or reacted with anger when deep down you were actually feeling insecure? How often have you believed something negative about yourself? I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I don't deserve it, as if it were a fact, when it was really just a belief you picked up along the way. Whoever controls the interpretation controls reality. That's why so many systems of power, political, religious, educational, focus so much on language and narrative. If you control how people see the world, you don't need to control what they do. When Nietzsche said there are no facts, only interpretations, he handed us a powerful key. Reality can be redefined. Not just the outside world, but our inner world too. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you interpret it. And that's where transformation begins. Think of something that hurt you deeply, something that still weighs heavy on your heart. Now ask yourself, what meaning have you given to that experience? Is it the only possible meaning? What if you looked at it from a different angle? What if that pain, instead of being just an end, could be seen as a beginning? Something that taught you, shaped you, revealed what you truly value. Nietzsche doesn't want you to run from pain. He wants you to use it. He wants you to break free from automatic thinking, from beliefs you inherited without question, and take charge of how you see the world. So let me ask you, what interpretations are running your life right now? What truths have you never questioned? What could you start to reinterpret right here, right now, to live with more freedom and authenticity? Remember, you're not a prisoner of facts. You're the creator of your interpretations, and in them lies the power to change your life. Nietzsche knew that, and maybe now, so do you. How many times have you heard that the truth will set you free? That we should pursue truth at all costs, as if it's the light at the end of the tunnel. Friedrich Nietzsche offers a bolder and more uncomfortable idea. Illusion is more vital than truth. Wait, what? Illusion more important than truth? That might sound outrageous at first, but if you look a little deeper, you might find something surprisingly meaningful, something that hits at the core of human existence. Nietzsche wasn't defending lies, he was defending life. And life, in his view, isn't logical or neatly organized. It's chaos, pain, instinct, contradiction. And that's exactly why pure truth, cold, harsh, and relentless, can sometimes crush us. Think about it. How many times have you faced a truth that felt too heavy to handle? The death of someone you love, the failure of a dream, the realization that the world isn't fair, or worse, the possibility that life might not have any ultimate meaning at all. Nietzsche saw that human beings need illusion to keep going. We need stories, symbols, meaning. We need a why to bear the how, as he famously said. So, illusion becomes a tool for survival, and sometimes even for greatness. This idea ties directly to Nietzsche's study of ancient Greek culture, especially Greek tragedy, which he explored in his first major book, The Birth of Tragedy. There, he described the tension between two forces, the Apollonian and the Dionysian. The Apollonian represents order, beauty, and idealized form, illusion. The Dionysian is chaos, suffering, and the raw truth of existence. According to Nietzsche, great art, especially tragedy, is born from the fusion of these two forces. We endure life's pain not by denying it, but by framing it in stories, metaphors, and beauty, in illusions. But does this mean we should live in denial? Should we run from reality? Not at all. Nietzsche isn't saying we should hide from the truth, only that not all truth can be absorbed raw. Sometimes truth needs to be softened, shaped, or translated into symbolic language so we can actually hold it. Think about how myths, religion, and cultural stories give us emotional structure to deal with fear, loss, and loneliness. They may not be scientific truths, but they're existential truths. They help us make life bearable, and more than that, meaningful. Nietzsche admired the Greeks for this. They didn't deny pain, but they didn't give in to despair either. They created gods, rituals, festivals. They created art, which, for Nietzsche, is the noblest illusion of all. Art is the lie that tells the truth, and living, in many ways, is a creative act. Now think about your own life. How many times did you have to believe in something bigger than yourself, even if it was uncertain? Just to keep going, a dream, a purpose, a relationship, a hope. These aren't illusions in a negative sense. They're psychological forces that move us forward. Truth alone can be paralyzing. Take the truth that we're all going to die. That truth can crush you, or it can motivate you, depending on the story you tell yourself about it. Nietzsche understood this like few others. That's why he said, "We have art in order not to die of the truth." And here's something important. You are the author of your illusion. Nietzsche wasn't telling you to accept someone else's version of reality. He was telling you to create your own structure of meaning. Don't settle for borrowed illusions. Be strong enough to invent your own path, your own worldview, your own way of living. In this sense, illusion isn't weakness. It's creative power. It's imagination. It's the thing that lets us rise above the rawness of reality and dream, resist, grow. And think about this, even science, which we think of as pure truth, works through models, theories, and simplifications. Even in the most rational fields, truths are always temporary, shaped by human language. The universe is still bigger than any formula. So let me ask you, what illusions are helping you stand tall right now? What little lies, healthy ones, do you tell yourself to keep going? What's the story you're writing about your life? If this reflection made sense to you, like this video and comment below. What illusion inspires you to keep going? Your answer might help someone else rethink their own journey. In the end, it's not truth that saves us, it's what we do with it. And if we have to dress pain in beauty, turn emptiness into art, or paint life with the colors of imagination, so be it. Because as Nietzsche knew all too well, life without illusion can be unbearable. But with it, it can become extraordinary. Have you ever tried to describe a feeling and realized that no word felt quite right? Have you ever looked at the sky, the ocean, or someone you love, and felt that no word or phrase could truly capture what you saw or felt? Friedrich Nietzsche, the razor-sharp philosopher, once said, "Language keeps us from seeing what's real." But what does that mean? If language is how we understand the world, how could it stop us from seeing it? Let's dive into this idea. And maybe, after this, you'll never use words the same way again. Language is a bridge, but it's also a filter. When we're born, the world is a raw stream of sensations, colors, sounds, shapes, feelings. Everything is new, pure, unfiltered. But as we grow, we're taught to name things. We learn, this is a table, that's love, that's time. But what are those words really? Nietzsche makes us realize that when we name the world, we also shrink it. Take the word tree, for example. It's just a label, a shortcut. There are thousands of types of trees, each unique in shape, size, color, and story. But we reduce them all to one word. And when we do that, we start to forget the details, the essence, the uniqueness. We don't think about the world as it is. We think about it the way we were taught to name it. Language gives us comfort, but it also locks reality into fixed categories. Have you ever felt something so complex there wasn't even a word for it? Have you ever lived through a moment that felt impossible to explain? Nietzsche saw that words don't just describe the world, they construct it. And even worse, they distort it. We think in inherited terms, using prefab structures. We call things good or bad, right or wrong, not realizing that those words come loaded with centuries of moral, religious, and cultural baggage. So what is truth? Nietzsche challenges us. Truth is a necessary illusion. It's a bunch of metaphors that we've simply forgotten are metaphors. He wrote, "What then is truth? A mobile army of metaphors, metonymies, anthropomorphisms. In other words, what we call truth is just language layered over language. Human attempts to organize chaos into something we can live with, and that changes everything. Language doesn't show us the world. It shows us a version of the world. Picture a river. You can look at it, swim in it, feel it against your skin. But when you say the word river, all of that rich living experience gets reduced to a 5-letter word. The flowing becomes fixed. And that's Nietzsche's critique. We freeze life with words. We try to lock down a reality that is constantly moving, shifting, changing. But life isn't still. Life is flow, it's transformation, it's contradiction, and language often tries to trap that in tidy little boxes, like pouring the ocean into a teacup. Here's a question worth asking. Are you living through reality or just through words? How many times have you accepted a label someone gave? You, too sensitive, not smart enough, weak, capable. Words that don't actually define you, but somehow shaped your identity. How often do you relate to someone based more on who you think they are than who they actually are? Nietzsche wants us to wake up to this. Language can blind us. It can act like a veil, covering reality with a neat system of symbols so polished we forget it's even there, shaping us, limiting us, separating us from raw, direct experience. But does that mean we should stop using language altogether? Not at all. Nietzsche isn't saying don't speak or don't think. He's saying be aware. Don't confuse words with the things they describe. Don't confuse concepts with reality. That's why he loved art, music, and poetry. Because in those forms, language doesn't try to define. It tries to evoke. It gestures toward the unspeakable. It gets closer to truth by not trying to capture it. Poetic, metaphorical, symbolic language. That kind of speech can sometimes pierce the veil. It can give us a glimpse of something deeper, more real. So what's the way forward? Live with more presence. Don't cling too tightly to words, labels, or categories. You are not what people say you are. The world is not just what you've been told to call it. There is something more, something that slips through, something that pulses behind the words. If this reflection resonated with you, like the video and comment below, what's one word you feel no longer defines you? That question alone might open up a huge space inside you for freedom, for reinvention, for a deeper connection to reality. Nietzsche invites us to question language, not because he hated it, but because he loved life, because life is always bigger than words. It flows beyond definitions, beyond names, beyond certainty. And if you're brave enough to move beyond the wall of language, you might find a world that's more honest, more alive, and more yours. You are not a word. You are a living, breathing experience in constant motion. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop repeating inherited names and start inventing your own way of being. If you want more reflections like this, subscribe to the channel. Here, philosophy isn't just thinking, it's transformation. What happens when we lose the foundation of our morality? Few phrases in the history of philosophy have caused as much impact as this one. God is dead, and we killed him. It's not blasphemy, it's not an attack on faith, and it's definitely not meant to be taken literally. When Nietzsche wrote these words, he was announcing a deep cultural crisis, something far beyond religion. He was talking about the collapse of a foundation, the death of a structure that held up not only morality, but the very meaning of existence in Western culture. And if God is dead, what do we put in his place? Let's unpack what Nietzsche really meant. In his book, The Gay Science, Nietzsche presents this phrase through a symbolic character, the madman, who runs through a marketplace in broad daylight, holding a lit lantern, shouting, "God is dead. God remains dead. And we have killed him." But the people around him laugh. They don't get it, because it's not a visible death. It's the death of an idea, the death of meaning, the death of a foundation. Nietzsche saw that modern society had slowly pushed God out of the center of life. Science, reason, secularism, and philosophy had all chipped away at the idea of an absolute God, a divinely given meaning, a universal morality grounded in a higher authority. But here's the catch: we still wanted to keep Christian values without Christ. We wanted to hold on to ideas like good and evil, humility, forgiveness, sacrifice, without believing in their divine source. And for Nietzsche, that was a contradiction. When God dies, everything built on him begins to fall apart. Traditional morality, with its absolute notions of right and wrong, loses its ground. The heavens go silent. There's no longer a cosmic order guaranteed by a higher being. The world stops being a story with a beginning, middle, and end, and becomes an open field, unpredictable, dangerous, without guarantees. Nietzsche understood this was a radical shift in human history. He didn't celebrate it lightly. On the contrary, he saw it as an enormous responsibility. Because if God is dead, who are we now? If there's no more meaning given from the outside, how do we create meaning from within? The death of God also marks the birth of a new kind of freedom, and a heavy one. Modernity freed us from the chains of traditional religion, but it also threw us into an existential void. And Nietzsche, with his brutal honesty, looked that void straight in the eye. Without God, nothing is guaranteed. Everything becomes open to interpretation. Morality is no longer handed down. It must be built. But who's ready for that? Most people, he thought, are not. That's why so many, even without truly believing, keep clinging to old values, following commandments by inertia, holding on to tradition out of fear of the emptiness. Nietzsche called this passive nihilism, the stage where we realize the old values have lost their power, but we're not yet strong enough to create new ones. And that's where the real question kicks in. Now what? What do we do without a higher foundation? Nietzsche didn't want us to despair. He wanted us to overcome, to stop being followers, to stop relying on metaphysical crutches, and to become creators. That's where he introduces the idea of the Übermensch, the overman or beyond man. Someone strong enough to invent new values, to embrace life with all its contradictions, and to live boldly, even without a pre-written script. This new kind of person doesn't lean on external truths. They build their own ethics, their own meaning. They don't hide behind dogma. They face the chaos of life with clarity and creative power. Is that easy? Of course not. It's a task for those with inner strength. The death of God demands philosophical maturity. It demands that we stop waiting for someone to tell us how to live and start living consciously, responsibly, and authentically. It's like Nietzsche is telling us, you no longer have the luxury of hiding behind commandments. Now it's up to you to answer, what is good? What is beautiful? What is worth living for? And those answers won't come from anyone else. They take courage, self-knowledge, depth. They require you to look the void in the eye and still choose to live fully. So I ask you, are you ready for that kind of freedom? Nietzsche didn't kill God to destroy meaning. He did it to set us free, to free us from the eternal dependence on something outside ourselves, to show us that we can and must carve a new path, a path that's more honest, more intense, more ours. He believed that even in chaos, there's beauty in freedom, and that it's precisely in the absence of guarantees that true human strength is born. The strength to stop waiting for meaning and start creating it. If God is dead, it's on us to resurrect life in a new way, without imposed illusions, without ready-made morals, with awareness, risk, and truth. A life without chains, but full of depth. Nietzsche gave us this wake-up call. Now the question is, what will you do with it? Is morality a form of domestication? Have you ever wondered why we follow certain values as if they were universal? Why we consider altruism a virtue and the will to power a flaw? Why we're taught from a young age that wanting, asserting, and conquering are dangerous, even wrong. Nietzsche, the great breaker of certainties, offers us an uncomfortable, provocative, and transformative answer. The weak invented morality to restrain the strong. This idea is a key that unlocks a fierce critique of traditional morality, and it raises a powerful question. Is the morality we follow truly fair? Or is it just a form of control disguised as virtue? For Nietzsche, morality didn't come from a love of goodness, but from a struggle for power. In his book, On the Genealogy of Morality, he lays out an ancient conflict, the clash between master morality and slave morality. Master morality comes from strength, from affirming life. To this kind of person, noble, strong, creative, good means power, greatness, vitality. Bad is whatever is weak, small, or resentful. This morality celebrates pride, courage, and action. Slave morality, on the other hand, comes from weakness, from resentment. Those who lack the power to assert themselves, the oppressed, the marginalized, created a reactive morality that flipped the values of the strong. They called power and freedom evil and labeled submission, humility, and self-denial as good. And the most surprising part, the slave morality won. With the rise of Christianity in the West, this weaker morality became the norm. Humility became a virtue. Obedience was seen as holy. Denying your desires was considered a sign of purity. Nietzsche saw this as a massive value reversal, not born from life's creative force, but from powerlessness that seeks to limit others. This kind of morality doesn't enlighten, it tames. According to Nietzsche, it was created to restrain the strong, to stop the most powerful, authentic, and free individuals from fully expressing their will. So, is morality a golden cage? How many times have you felt guilty just for wanting something deeply? How many times have you been judged for putting yourself first, for not fitting in, for challenging rules that no longer make sense? Nietzsche invites us to question that moral voice inside us. He shows us that what we call conscience is often just the echo of the weak's morality, a voice that keeps us from living fully, authentically, powerfully. Traditional morality teaches us to obey, to suppress, to please. It trains us to reject our creative, assertive nature, all in the name of supposed virtue. But is it really virtuous to deny your own strength? True strength, Nietzsche says, lies in creating your own values, not blindly inheriting them. He's not calling for a world without ethics or boundaries. What he's calling for is an inner revolution, an ethics of creation, affirmation, and authenticity. Nietzsche honors the one who refuses to accept ready-made truths, the one who questions the morality they've inherited, the one who digs into its origins, its functions, its effects, and from there builds something new, not from weakness, but from life itself. That's the mission of the free spirit, to stop being a servant of imposed morality and become a lawgiver to oneself. But that takes courage, a lot of courage, because when you break away from the morality of the weak, you also step away from the comfort of being accepted, from easy applause, from automatic belonging. You become, as Nietzsche said, an exception, and every exception is resisted at first. Have you ever felt like you're living by values that aren't truly yours? Have you felt guilty for following your own path? Drop a comment below. What inherited value do you feel ready to break free from? This space is yours to reflect, question, and begin again. Nietzsche isn't saying the weak should be destroyed, only that their morality shouldn't be universal. Every type of human being should be free to express their own power. But when a morality born of weakness becomes the rule for everyone, it suffocates life. And that, for Nietzsche, is the real sin. Because to him, life is about the will to power, growth, creation, transformation. And any morality that denies that is really a form of quiet decay. So, what kind of morality are you living? Is it one that empowers you or holds you back? Is it a morality born from your creative force, or one that was planted in you to tame you? Nietzsche gives us a mission: to re-examine our values with a hammer, not to smash them mindlessly, but to test if they still ring true, or if they're just inherited noise. The morality of the weak still lives inside us, but it doesn't have to rule us. You can create a new ethic, one that celebrates your strength, your freedom, your truth. A morality that doesn't repress life, but affirms it. Nietzsche didn't want a world without values. He wanted a world where values are born from greatness, not fear. And maybe that world starts with you. Nietzsche spoke to the restless, to those building their inner strength, to those who refuse to be tamed. And if something in you stirred, reading this, maybe it's because you've already started breaking free. Is the pain we feel really ours? How many times have you felt guilty for wanting something you truly desired? Guilty for saying no, for setting boundaries, for following your own path, for simply being yourself. Guilt often feels like a noble emotion, a sign of conscience, responsibility, and moral awareness. But Nietzsche challenges us to look deeper. He hits us with a bold and unsettling claim. Guilt is a weapon used by the resentful. So, is this heavy feeling really yours? Or are you being manipulated by a more subtle kind of power? Nietzsche believed guilt is often not a virtue, but an invention. In his book on the genealogy of morals, he shows us how guilt was created historically as a tool of control, especially by those he calls the resentful. Who are they? They're the ones who don't have the strength to act directly in the world, so they act indirectly. They can't dominate through power, so they dominate through emotion, through guilt, through shame, through internalized judgment. They don't shout, they whisper, they don't forbid, they make you feel bad for wanting. Guilt then becomes a silent poison. It feels like moral awareness, but it's often just emotional control, a way to get you to hold yourself back. No need for chains or external threats. Nietzsche saw this clearly in Christian morality, especially in the idea of sin. To him, this system turned desire into wrongdoing, the body into a problem, the will to live into guilt. And when that happens, we stop growing. We stop affirming life. We start walking in fear of ourselves. Guilt makes you live on your knees. You no longer act from strength. You live trying not to do wrong. You distance yourself from your deepest desires, your true choices, your authentic will. All because a voice inside says, you shouldn't want that. That's selfish. You'll hurt someone. You're not a good person. But who put that voice there? Where did that weight come from? The one that feels so natural, but might have been planted in you to keep you small. Nietzsche wants us to free the soul from imposed guilt. He's not saying we should live without awareness, ethics, or responsibility. What he's calling for is deeper. An ethic based on creative power, not repression. Guilt, for Nietzsche, only makes sense if it comes from genuine, self-reflective thought, not from pressure by society, family, or religion. The guilt that comes from the resentful doesn't want to make you better. It wants to keep you stuck. It wants you to shrink, to regret, to feel ashamed for daring. It's the kind of guilt that wears a mask of virtue, but is born from fear and serves control. Guilt is also emotional currency. How many times have you seen someone play the victim just to make others feel guilty? How many times have you been manipulated by looks, silences, or lines like, after everything I've done for you? Nietzsche saw this as a form of resentment, a toxic emotion that, instead of owning its pain, blames others. And that creates a cycle. The resentful accuse, the other feels guilty, and the wheel of control keeps spinning. So ask yourself, are you carrying guilt that's truly yours? Or are you living under the weight of expectations, rules, and beliefs that were placed on you without your consent? If this message resonates with you, drop a comment. What guilt do you feel ready to let go of? Your words might help free someone else too. And if you haven't liked the video yet, now's the time. Let's spread this reflection to more people who need to release the weight that isn't theirs. Nietzsche believed that overcoming guilt is a key step in becoming a free spirit. A free spirit doesn't apologize for being who they are. They don't bow to inherited values. They think, question, choose. And yes, they take responsibility, but not out of blind obedience, out of autonomy. They understand that to live fully is to risk, to make mistakes, to grow. That true ethics isn't about following rules, it's about living deeply and authentically. Feeling guilt can be a sign. But living in guilt is living in a cage. Nietzsche invites you to break your inner chains, to look at what you feel with courage, to question the origin of your burdens, and to give back to the resentful what was never truly yours. Because guilt, when it's not real, doesn't transform you, it only paralyzes you. So, what are you going to do with your guilt today? Will you keep carrying what others put on you? Or will you start writing your own story? With more clarity, more lightness, and more truth. Nietzsche still has much more to teach us. Guilt can be a prison, but you hold the key, and maybe, just maybe, it's time to use it. Not all help is noble. Have you ever felt like someone helped you, just to remind you that you were weak? Have you ever received a gesture of kindness that instead of lifting you up, made you feel small? Nietzsche, with his brutal clarity, invites us to take a deeper look at a feeling often seen as the purest of virtues, compassion, but he offers a sharp warning. Compassion can be a disguised form of power, and that changes everything. Because suddenly what looked like an act of selfless care might actually be hiding domination, pride, or resentment. Is helping always an act of love, or sometimes? Is it a subtle way of placing ourselves above someone else? For Nietzsche, it all comes down to the will to power. This is a central concept in his philosophy. The will to power isn't just about controlling others. It's the deep, natural drive of life to assert itself, to grow, to express its strength. Even seemingly kind gestures, he says, are often influenced by this dynamic. And that's where his critique of compassion begins. When you help someone, what's your true motivation? Are you genuinely serving them, or secretly reinforcing your own superiority? Are you coming from empathy, or feeding your ego? Nietzsche isn't saying that all compassion is fake. He's simply showing us that not all compassion is innocent. Compassion can be a form of control. Imagine a society where everyone is constantly encouraged to feel pity, sympathy, mercy. Sounds beautiful on the surface, but Nietzsche saw a danger in this model. It can weaken people. It can lead to passivity, dependency, victimhood. Even worse, it can chain down the strong, discouraging people from standing tall, from asserting themselves, out of fear of seeming too harsh, insensitive, or selfish. Nietzsche saw that compassion is often used as a moral tool to shame strength, to suppress vitality, and to keep people within the safe limits of comfortable mediocrity. Helping can become a way to keep others on the ground. How often does help come with hidden judgment? With a silent message like, "You need me. You can't do this without me. I'm good. You're needy." Nietzsche warns us about this kind of compassion, the kind that humiliates instead of uplifts. It doesn't free. It controls gently. It doesn't empower. It infantilizes. It looks like altruism, but it's just another way to exercise power and protect invisible hierarchies. The resentful love this kind of compassion. Why? Because it lets them feel morally superior without achieving anything through strength or merit. Compassion becomes a mask, the armor of the weak pretending to be saints. Those who resent the strong, the free, the creators, hide behind compassion to launch indirect attacks. How can you think about yourself when there's so much suffering in the world? Nietzsche saw this kind of morality as a serious threat to life's full expression, a sick morality where care becomes coercion and empathy becomes guilt. But what about real compassion? Does it exist? Yes. And Nietzsche doesn't dismiss it entirely. He simply draws a powerful distinction between reactive and affirmative compassion. Reactive compassion comes from weakness, fear, and the need to keep others dependent. Affirmative compassion comes from strength, from someone so full of inner power that they can share it without needing anything in return. Healthy compassion doesn't chain, it liberates, it doesn't belittle, it honors the other's dignity. It doesn't place the helper above, it walks alongside. Now ask yourself, how are you helping the people around you? Do you reach out expecting praise, gratitude, or submission? Or do you help knowing that we're all, in different ways, just learning how to get back up? Drop a comment. Have you ever been helped in a way that made you feel small? How did you handle it? Your story might open space for others to reflect too. Nietzsche believed true greatness doesn't need to humiliate anyone. It's so full of itself that it can give without needing to feel superior. It doesn't feel pity, it feels respect. It doesn't create dependence. It inspires autonomy. Maybe the greatest help you can offer someone isn't solving their pain, but strengthening them so they can face it on their own. Compassion, when born from weakness, paralyzes. But when born from strength, it transforms. And once again, Nietzsche calls us to look within, to ask, where is my desire to help coming from? Am I offering support or secretly seeking power? This kind of honesty is powerful. In the end, it's not about whether or not you help. It's about how, why, and from what truth inside yourself you choose to do it. Are you truly living or just surviving? What does it really mean to be alive? Is it just breathing, waking up, paying bills, checking off responsibilities? Or is it something bigger, deeper, more intense, maybe even dangerous? For Nietzsche, life isn't neutral. It's not about fitting in or just passing the time. At its core, life is about power, movement, overcoming. That's why he says, life is a will to power, or it's nothing. This line hits like a punch and an invitation. It challenges you to look in the mirror and ask, am I living with strength, or am I just shrinking myself to fit into the world? The will to power isn't about domination, it's about expansion. People often misunderstand this concept. When Nietzsche talks about the will to power, he's not talking about blind ambition or controlling others. He's pointing to something much deeper. The inner force that drives every living thing to grow, to create, to go beyond, to become what it is meant to be. Plants stretch toward the light. Kids explore the world with curiosity. Artists turn pain into beauty. Bodies move, ideas spark, projects take shape. All of that is will to power, life wanting more of itself. Nietzsche saw this will as the engine of life. To live is to expand, to take up space in the world with authenticity, to shape the chaos around you into something uniquely yours. But what happens when that will is suppressed? The answer is simple and sad. Life shrinks. How many times have you felt suffocated? Swallowing your words, burying your dreams, saying yes when everything inside you screamed no. Nietzsche called that the denial of life. It happens when we live under values that diminish us, when we trade intensity for comfort, when we stop creating and just start obeying. And that's why he said, life is a will to power, or it's nothing. Without that force, that drive to affirm, to transform, to break through, life becomes nothing more than repetition, survival, inertia. To live isn't to adapt, it's to assert. In a world full of rules, expectations, and judgment, it's easy to conform, to become what others expect, to suppress what you feel, just to fit in, to walk the safe path, instead of creating your own. Nietzsche called that a decadent life, a life ruled by fear, where desire stays silent and strength stays hidden. But he also believed in another path, a path for those who choose to live affirmatively, with courage, intensity, and authenticity. The will to power is a call to create. And creating isn't just about art, it's about owning your existence. It's turning your life into a work of art. It's standing up when everything tells you to sit down. It's saying, this is who I am, even if that means walking alone. Nietzsche believed each person carries a unique force inside, but only those who face themselves have the strength to express it in the world. So I ask you, are you expressing your power or hiding your greatness out of fear? Drop a comment. What part of you is ready to wake up? Your answer might inspire someone else to break free from inertia too. The will to power is also the will to overcome. Nietzsche didn't see life as something static. To live is to become, to fight against your own stagnation, to look in the mirror and say, I'm not yet who I could be. He invites us into battle. But the biggest battle isn't against others, it's against apathy, against fear, against the part of us that just wants to stay safe, small, and unseen. Anyone who accepts that challenge enters a journey of transformation, a life that doesn't chase approval, but seeks meaning. But be warned, this path takes courage. The will to power isn't comfortable. It demands that you leave the comfort zone, that you say no to old versions of yourself, that you face rejection, failure, and pain as part of the process of expansion. Nietzsche didn't believe in redemption, but he believed in overcoming. And to him, the only way to honor life is to live it with intensity. And if you're waiting for the right moment, know this, it's not coming. Life won't wait for you to be ready. The will to power happens now, in the action, in the choice, in doing the thing, even when you're scared. Nietzsche wanted you to stop being a spectator and become a creator of yourself, of your values, of your story. Life isn't about fitting in, it's about standing out. It's about stretching your existence until it leaves a mark on the world. Life is a will to power, or it's nothing. So here's the final question. Are you truly living, or just trying not to disappear? Freedom means writing your own moral code. Have you ever felt like you're living a life that isn't yours? Following rules you never chose, chasing expectations that came from outside, trying to fit into a mold that's quietly suffocating you? Friedrich Nietzsche, with his fearless philosophy, points to an uncomfortable truth. Most people live by inherited values, not ones they've created. That's why he boldly declared, true strength is creating your own values. It's not enough to simply live. You have to choose how to live. It's not enough to be good. You have to define what good actually means for you. From a young age, we're taught what's right and wrong. But how often do we stop to ask, where do these ideas come from? Who decided this was the truth? Does this value make me stronger or just easier to control? Nietzsche believed that much of what we call morality was built not to free us, but to tame us. It comes from religion, tradition, and culture, passed down as if it were sacred. But is it really? How many times have you felt guilty for wanting something that was deeply real for you? How often have you felt wrong just for being authentic? Inherited morality is an invisible leash. Nietzsche called it herd morality, the kind that teaches obedience, conformity, and submission. It rewards those who follow the rules and punishes those who dare to think differently. But true greatness, Nietzsche said, belongs to those with the courage to break from imposed morals. Those who don't blindly accept truths. Those who dare to create their own values. From their own lives, their own experiences, their own essence. That takes real strength. Creating your own values is an act of freedom and responsibility. It's easy to follow rules made by others. You don't have to think, you just obey. But when you create your own moral code, there's nowhere to hide. The choice, the mistake, the consequence, the growth, it's all on you. That's why Nietzsche called these people free spirits, not lawless, not reckless, but rooted in a moral code that's authentic, self-aware, and built from within, not handed down by society. That's real power, living with integrity, not obedience. So why is it so hard to let go of inherited values? Because they give us a false sense of safety. It's easier to walk a path that's already been paved. It's more comfortable to obey than to risk being different. It's simpler to repeat what's been said than to build something new. But that comfort comes at a price. Your originality, your inner strength, your true freedom. Nietzsche believed every human has the potential to be a creator of values, but only a few have the courage to answer that call. To create your own values is to turn pain into wisdom. Nietzsche never sugarcoated life. To him, life is hard, it's messy, it's uncertain. But because of that, we're given the chance to create something new. Pain, failure, rejection, they can all become raw material. You get to choose. Will those experiences make you bitter, or more aware, a victim, or the author of your life? Now ask yourself, which values are truly yours, and which were put there by someone else? Drop a comment below. What inherited value no longer serves you? Your answer might help others. Break free too, but let's be clear, creating your own values isn't about rejecting everything. It's about choosing with clarity. Nietzsche's not telling you to be a rebel without a cause. He's telling you to question everything, deeply, and only keep what truly makes sense to you, what strengthens you, what connects you to life. It's like running your soul through a filter. What survives the test of experience, self-awareness, and truth stays. The rest, let it go. This is how you become who you truly are. You weren't born to be a copy. You weren't put here to follow formulas. You're here to live uniquely, boldly, authentically. Nietzsche believed this was our greatest task, not to obey the world, but to stand tall in front of it. And only those who create their own values can truly do that. To create your own values, it is an act of courage and self-love. It's saying, I trust my own vision. I listen to my own voice. I honor my own experience. And that, Nietzsche believed, is true strength. The strength of someone who doesn't need to hide behind rules, who doesn't need to be accepted, because they've already accepted themselves. Nietzsche saw life as a chance to be a creator of yourself, of your meaning, of your values. And if you've read this far, maybe you've already started to feel it. That strength is inside you too. The only question is, will you use it, or will you keep living by someone else's rules? Why are the truly great always alone? Have you ever felt that the more authentic you try to be, the more resistance you face? Like the world prefers what's comfortable over what's real. That it cheers for the average, but gets uncomfortable around the extraordinary. Nietzsche, always blunt and unsettling, pointed out a harsh truth about culture. Society rewards the mediocre and fears the authentic. This isn't just a random complaint. It's a philosophical warning, a wake-up call for anyone who dares to break from the herd. And a heads up, if you're trying to live with authenticity, get ready. You will make people uncomfortable. Society runs more smoothly when everyone plays their role. From a young age, we're trained to obey, to fit in, to conform, to belong. At school, at home, at work. Everything is built to keep the group stable. And stability often means a kind of comfortable mediocrity. The mediocre aren't stupid. They're not even bad people. They're just those who settle for less than their full potential. In exchange for acceptance, they follow the script. They stay on trend. They avoid conflict. And that's exactly why society rewards them. They're predictable, safe, manageable. But the authentic one, that person is a threat. The authentic breaks patterns. They think for themselves, feel for themselves, act from within. They don't live to please. They live to be real. And that, in a world built on approval, is dangerous. Nietzsche saw authenticity as a rare kind of power. The power to live according to your own will, not someone else's expectations. But that power comes with a cost: solitude. Real greatness is often lonely and usually under attack. Why? Because the authentic one is a mirror. They reflect back the cowardice of those hiding behind masks. Just by existing, they make others uncomfortable. Nietzsche understood that free spirits, the bold, the creators, the ones who dare to be themselves, are often rejected, mocked, or feared. Not because they're bad, but because they're too much for a world that fears depth. That's why, he says, the authentic often walk alone. But here's the thing, that solitude isn't a punishment. It's a choice. Nietzsche didn't see solitude as sad or broken. He saw it as a space of creation, a quiet, fertile silence, where you can finally hear your own voice without the noise of the crowd. It's where you stop being a reflection and become a source. Of course, this path is hard, but it's also the only one that leads to real greatness. Society doesn't know what to do with people who don't need it. Those who don't crave validation scare others. Those who don't bow disrupt the system. Those who aren't afraid of rejection can't be controlled. Nietzsche knew that great thinkers, true artists, and authentic leaders were almost always outsiders at first. Only after, sometimes centuries later, are they celebrated. But in their time, they were seen as strange, arrogant, even dangerous, because society fears what it can't label, and the authentic, by definition, cannot be labeled. So what's the answer? If you want to live authentically, are you doomed to walk alone? Nietzsche would say, it's not a curse, it's freedom. Solitude doesn't mean disconnection. It means no more masks. It means you're willing to stand alone if that's the price for not betraying yourself. And the beautiful part? When you live in that truth, you start attracting the few who've made the same choice. And those connections? They're rare, but deep, powerful, and real. So let me ask you, would you rather be applauded by people who don't even know you, or respected by those who see your truth? Drop a comment below. Have you ever felt like you had to hide who you are just to be accepted? What was that like for you? Nietzsche believed the world doesn't need more copies. It needs free individuals. And real freedom starts when you choose to live by your own essence, even if it means making people uncomfortable, stepping outside the group, or losing the applause. Mediocrity is comfortable. Authenticity is risky. But only one of them is truly alive. Society rewards the mediocre because they don't shake the system, but it fears the authentic because they carry too much power. Are you living out of fear or by choice? How many times have you followed a rule without thinking? How often have you said yes just to avoid upsetting someone? How many times have you stayed silent instead of speaking your truth? Nietzsche, always bold enough to say what most won't, hits us with an uncomfortable truth. Obedience is the vice of those who lack courage. Obedience often looks like a virtue, like humility, like discipline. But to Nietzsche, It's often just disguised cowardice. It's giving up your own will in exchange for comfort and approval. Obedience is easier than creation. From the moment we're born, we're trained to obey. Do this. Sit like that. Dress this way. Be a good person. But when do we stop and ask, who made these rules? Do they still make sense? And if they don't, why am I still living by them? Nietzsche saw obedience as a form of existential escape, a way of avoiding the weight of freedom. Because being free means being responsible, and carving your own path takes courage. The obedient live safely, the courageous live with meaning. Most people don't want to make decisions. They want someone to tell them what to do, what to think, how to live. They want ready-made answers, step-by-step guides, absolute truths. It's easier to follow commandments than to look inward. It's easier to go with the flow than to swim against it. But Nietzsche dares us to break this illusion of safety. He says, become who you are. And that only happens when you stop obeying and start creating. Obedience creates the herd. Courage creates the individual. The world is full of people who just repeat. They echo ideas, beliefs, and traditions without even realizing it. Nietzsche called this the herd morality, a system that demands conformity, rewards obedience, and punishes difference. If you question, if you choose, if you think for yourself, you'll quickly be labeled arrogant, ungrateful, or rebellious. Why? Because you're free. And freedom, in a society built on control, is a threat. But don't confuse freedom with recklessness. Nietzsche isn't saying, break all the rules just to rebel. He's saying, question them, think, feel, choose. Obeying blindly is slavery. But obeying consciously, now that's freedom. And so is disobedience, when it comes from clarity and integrity. The point isn't whether you follow or break rules. It's about whether the choice is truly yours. Blind. Obedience is born from fear, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being judged, fear of being truly free. Nietzsche knew that most people say they want freedom, but deep down, they want someone to tell them what to do. Because freedom is scary. It means taking full responsibility for your life, and that's heavy, but it's also real. It's truly living, not just going through the motions. So ask yourself, are you obeying out of wisdom or out of fear? Nietzsche believed the highest kind of human is one who has the strength to forge their own path. He called this person the free spirit, someone who breaks away from inherited truths, who leaves behind traditions that no longer serve, who has the guts to fail, but also the guts to live authentically. And yes, this path is often lonely, because the world fears the one who thinks. It tries to pull them back into comfort, into average, into normal. But Nietzsche invites you to resist, to choose authenticity, even if it means being misunderstood, criticized, or left out. Obedience is easy. Creation is heroic. Most people conform. Few become creators, creators of values, of meaning, of identity, of existence. These are the ones who honor life with courage, even when it hurts, even when they lose, even when they stand alone, because they know that a life of obedience might be safe, but it will never be free, and it will never be great. So ask yourself, are you here to live on autopilot, or to become who you truly are? That's the question Nietzsche would ask each of us. And maybe, just maybe, if you're still reading this, it's because a part of you already knows the rules around you might just be walls, and you were born to fly. Obedience is the vice of those who lack courage. But courage can be built with each step, each decision, each no you dare to say, and each yes you give to yourself. When was the last time you disobeyed to stay true to who you are? Share it in the comments. No one lives an authentic life without breaking a few rules, especially the invisible ones. The invisible prison of social approval. How many times have you done something just to avoid disappointing someone? How many times have you said yes when every part of you was screaming no? How often have you hidden what you feel, what you think, who you are, just to keep others happy? Nietzsche, with his brutal philosophical honesty, didn't hold back. If you live to please others, you're a slave. Yes, a slave. Not of iron chains, but of psychological, emotional, and invisible ones. The kind that keep you smiling, while you slowly lose yourself. Social approval is a golden cage. It shines. It seduces. It offers acceptance, applause, belonging. But it comes at a high cost, your inner freedom. You start dressing the way people expect, saying what's acceptable, thinking what's appropriate, chasing ideas of success, beauty, and happiness that aren't even yours. And the scariest part, over time, you stop noticing you're even in a cage. You think you're choosing, but you're just repeating. Nietzsche saw this as a form of moral slavery, a life lived through someone else's gaze, by rules that come from outside, is a life without authenticity. And where there's no authenticity, there's no true freedom. The need to please turns people into characters. And no matter how perfect a character may look, they're always acting, always adjusting, always afraid to disappoint. Nietzsche wanted to awaken a radical awareness in each of us. Living for acceptance is choosing the prison of mediocrity. But why do we do it? Why are we so desperate to please? Because we're afraid. Afraid of being rejected, afraid of being judged, afraid of being alone. Yes, we're social beings. That's true. But Nietzsche reminds us our social nature should never lead to self-erasure. The other person can't be your only mirror. Because when your identity depends on someone else's approval, every bit of criticism becomes a threat. Every rejection feels like the end of the world. You stop living from conviction and start living for performance. Freedom begins the moment you drop the act and choose your truth. Nietzsche believed every person carries a unique inner power, but that power only comes out when you let go of your addiction to approval. This doesn't mean becoming aggressive or rejecting everyone. It means living in alignment with what's real inside you, even if it upsets others. Yes, you'll be judged. Yes, some people will walk away. But for the first time, you'll breathe fully, because you'll finally be whole. When you live to please others, you lose yourself. And the worst part, most of the time, you're not even really pleasing anyone, because other people's expectations change all the time. Today, they want you sweet. Tomorrow, they want you strong. Today, they love you. Tomorrow, they criticize. You living to please is like chasing a moving target and never hitting it. Nietzsche invites us to make a choice. Do you want to be true or just accepted? Do you want applause or freedom? Real strength is living in loyalty to yourself. Nietzsche called this becoming who you are. And that journey requires shedding the masks, stopping the performance, saying no without guilt, choosing yourself, even if it means losing the approval of many. It's better to be rejected for being real than loved for being fake. Nietzsche believed the strong aren't the ones who aim to please. They're the ones who stand, tall in their truth, even under judgment. They don't sell themselves for likes, claps, or praise. They know who they are, and that's why they're free. But freedom comes with a price. Moments of loneliness, criticism, misunderstandings, and still, it's worth every step. Because it's better to walk alone in truth than be surrounded by people while betraying yourself. Living to please is living with a leash. Living authentically is breaking that leash and taking the risk of being you. And that risk, it's the only path to real greatness. Nietzsche didn't call us to be empty rebels. He called us to be whole, to live with power, to put into the world what only we can bring. No filters, no masks, no fear. Those who live to please are slaves. Those who live in truth are rare. And you, will you follow the script? Or will you write your own story? Drop a comment. What do you need to stop pleasing to finally be free? Pain as the forge of true strength. Why do we suffer? That question has crossed centuries, cultures, religions, and philosophies. And most of them try to answer it with comfort, with hope, with soft explanations meant to ease the impact of pain. But Nietzsche, always Nietzsche, chose a different path. He looked at suffering head-on. No filters, no anesthesia. And he made a bold, unsettling claim. Suffering is inevitable. And more than that, it's necessary. Pain, he said, is not a mistake in life. It's an essential part of it. It's the forge where true strength is born, where the deep soul and the higher self are shaped. We live in a culture obsessed with avoiding pain at all costs. We run from discomfort through distractions, medications, entertainment. We chase instant pleasure, quick relief, easy answers. But deep down, we know pain always returns. It finds us, and when it does, it demands our full presence. Nietzsche saw this constant avoidance as a sign of cultural decay. A society that runs from suffering also runs from growth, transformation, and true greatness. For him, only those who suffer consciously can truly evolve. Pain is the path to overcoming. Think about it. The moments that shaped you the most weren't the easy ones. It was the loss that taught you what truly matters. The loneliness that taught you self-reliance. The failure that forced you to look inward. The pain that uncovered strengths you didn't even know you had. Nietzsche saw suffering as a soul trial. Pain doesn't destroy you. It tests you, and it asks, what will you do with this? Will you hide or rise? When faced head-on, pain reveals your essence. He believed suffering pulls us out of the shallow surface of life. It drags us into the deep layers of who we really are. It brings us face to face with our fears, contradictions, and shadows. And in that brutal encounter, something new can be born. But, and this is key, it only happens if you don't run. If you're brave enough to see pain not as punishment, but as opportunity, as a fire that, yes, burns, but also purifies. Without suffering, there is no depth. Nietzsche saw that the greatest creators, thinkers, and artists in history weren't just talented. They had a rare ability to turn pain into beauty, into truth, into vision. A great soul doesn't avoid pain. It gives shape to it. It turns falls into learning, grief into wisdom, wounds into light. And here's the real secret. Suffering doesn't automatically make you grow. It can also make you bitter, hard, numb, but it can also elevate you, free you, make you whole. So what about you? What pain has taught you the most? About yourself? Drop it in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs today. Nietzsche didn't want you to play the victim of pain. He wanted you to use it. Use it as momentum, as a tool, as rich soil to rebuild yourself. Because hidden inside pain is a powerful question. Will you transform or will you break? That choice is yours. Pain forces us to rethink ourselves, and that is freedom. It destroys illusions. It reveals what actually matters. It separates the essential from the noise. So often, pain pulls you off a path you didn't have the courage to leave. It pushes you away from people, habits, and situations that were slowly draining you. And when you come out on the other side, you're different, clearer, stronger, more real. Nietzsche believed that if you've never suffered deeply, you've never truly lived deeply. It's not pain that weakens us, it's our resistance to it. Repressed pain rots from within, but pain faced with courage, it transforms. It becomes real compassion, practical wisdom, emotional maturity, and none of that comes from books or feel-good quotes. It comes from lived experience, from falling, from scars. Nietzsche believed greatness only comes from moving through pain, not running from it. Life is hard, but you can be stronger, not strong in the fake, performative way, strong in the real way. Someone who doesn't break easily because they've grown roots in the middle of the storm. Nietzsche knew no one becomes great without pain, but he also knew pain alone isn't enough. It needs a decision. What are you going to do with it? You can become bitter or more human. You can shut down or open up. You can die inside or be reborn stronger. Pain isn't the end. It's the crossroad. Suffering is inevitable, but what you do with it defines who you become. Nietzsche doesn't offer comfort. He offers something far better, the chance to turn pain into power. And you, what will you do with yours? Why is suffering the foundation of true greatness? We live in a time that avoids pain at all costs. We want the fastest route, instant pleasure, constant ease. But Nietzsche, always direct, always deep, challenges us with an uncomfortable truth. Pain shapes the strong spirit. To him, there is no growth without struggle, no depth without suffering, no strength without scars, and that changes everything, because it invites us to stop running from pain and start seeing it as an essential part of becoming who we are. You don't grow stronger on easy days. Sure, you might rest during peaceful times, but it's in the hard moments that you find out what you're really made of. It's when everything falls apart that you discover what actually holds you together. It's when life squeezes you that you uncover your raw, real, inner strength. Nietzsche believed pain has a sacred, transformative role. It carves, it molds, it reshapes. But here's the catch. It doesn't do that on its own. It's your attitude toward pain that decides whether it will break you or forge you. Pain is a brutal teacher, but it's also the most honest one. It doesn't lie. It doesn't sugarcoat. It forces you to face who you are when the masks fall off, when the applause fades, when all your support disappears, and in that raw, silent space, something new can begin. A kind of strength that doesn't come from theory. It comes from experience, from the fall, from the bottom you faced with courage. Nietzsche saw that as the beginning of real power, the kind of strength that doesn't need to pretend, the kind that isn't dependent on anyone's approval, the kind that comes from pain, and because of that it lasts. Without pain, the soul stays shallow. Nietzsche believed that depth comes through suffering, because pain pulls us out of the shallow end of life. It forces us to dive deep into who we really are. Someone who's never truly suffered rarely understands themselves and understands others even less. They might live a comfortable life, but they'll never live a conscious one. Pain shatters illusions. It breaks weak beliefs. It challenges what we thought was certain and shows us there's much more to discover inside ourselves. So, what is a strong spirit really? It's not someone who never cries, not someone who hides pain, not someone who pretends to be fine. It's someone who accepts pain as part of life, not a mistake in life. Someone who doesn't completely fall apart when they suffer. Someone who feels it with dignity and slowly turns that suffering into wisdom. Nietzsche saw that kind of person as rare and powerful because the strong spirit doesn't deny chaos. It moves through chaos and finds order within. But no, one is born that way. That kind of strength is earned. Every challenge faced, every fall survived, every pain felt and processed is a brick in the building of the strong spirit. And that's why Nietzsche said pain shapes us. It's like the fire that purifies gold. like the weight that builds muscle, like the night that comes before dawn. Without pain, there's no refinement. Without pain, there's no real transformation. But be careful, not all pain makes you stronger. Nietzsche never romanticized suffering. He didn't believe in pain for pain's sake. Pain only builds you if there's awareness, if you face it, if you find meaning in it. Avoided pain, repressed pain, that just turns toxic. But pain that's faced with courage, that pain enlightens. Nietzsche knew the great ones weren't those who always won. They were the ones who refused to give up. He saw pain not as an enemy, but as an ally, a tough teacher, but a fair one. One that doesn't offer shortcuts, but gives you something better, a solid foundation. And that's why he believed pain is necessary, because without it, you might never discover your own greatness. Life won't spare you, but it can shape you. The question is, will you let it break you? Or will you use every blow as fuel to become stronger, clearer, deeper? Nietzsche invites you to stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can I do with this now? That question is the beginning of the strong spirit. It's where complaining ends and creation begins. Pain shapes the strong spirit, because the person who's been through hell and didn't give up never comes back the same. They come back whole, wiser, more grounded and ready to live, not an easy life, but a life with depth. Would you live your life exactly as it is, forever? Imagine if, right now, someone told you, everything you've lived so far, every choice, every mistake, every joy, every pain, will repeat. Not just once, but infinitely. You'll live this same exact life, the same exact way, for all eternity. How would you react? With despair or with gratitude? That's the radical challenge Nietzsche gives us in one of his most powerful and unsettling ideas, the eternal return. But it's not a scientific theory. It's not about physics or time travel. It's an existential test, a psychological mirror, a bold question Nietzsche throws in our face. If you had to live this exact life over and over again, would you still choose it? This idea is a measure of authenticity. It forces you to look at your life and ask, am I really living or just surviving? You can fake things with others. You can even fake it with yourself for a while. But in the face of this idea, there's no place to hide. Would you truly want to relive the life you're living right now, forever? If the answer is no, maybe you're not living a life that honors who you are. Nietzsche isn't asking for perfection. He's not telling you to chase a flawless life without mistakes or pain. He's asking something deeper. Are you living in a way that you could say yes to it for eternity? Most people aren't. We delay our dreams. We numb ourselves. We follow routines. We wait for the right moment to start being who we really are. Eternal return is a wake-up call. It demands presence. It dares you to live this moment so fully that you would choose it again, forever. It's a challenge to stop living on autopilot, to stop postponing life, to stop hiding behind fear, comfort, or excuses. Nietzsche is asking us to live every moment like it matters, to choose our words, our relationships, our goals with intensity, to live as if every day is a permanent signature of who we are. Again, it's not about being perfect. It's about being present, being real, being awake. Even the painful parts, even the losses, even the hard decisions. You look back at your story and say, yes, I lived, I felt, I tried, I became. The eternal return shows whether you're living by choice or out of fear. How many times have you said yes just to please others? How many paths have you taken just to avoid mistakes? How many times have you silenced yourself, assuming you'd have time later And Nietzsche asks, what if there is no later? What if this is all there is? Forever. It's not a threat. It's a push, a spark. Nietzsche doesn't hand you easy answers. He gives you questions that burn, and this one burns deep. The eternal return strips away fake priorities, fears, disguised as caution, dreams left on hold. It demands real life, not the life you pretend to have, not the life someone else told you to live, but the life that's yours, raw, honest, meaningful. To live as if eternal return were real is to live without silent regrets, to choose with awareness, to love what you have and change what you can, to understand that each moment carries the weight of eternity, not because it will literally last forever, but because it might be all you ever get. Nietzsche doesn't want you to be afraid. He wants you to be fully alive. The eternal return is the ultimate test. Does your life deserve an eternal yes? And if the answer is no, don't feel guilt. Just know it's a signal, a sign to shift, a call to action. There's still time. Time to stop drifting. Time to live with truth. Time to make your life a story you'd want to repeat, not because you have to, but because you'd love to. If your life were a movie on an endless loop, would you want to watch it again? If not, maybe it's time to rewrite the script. What if the emptiness you're afraid of is actually your greatest chance to be free? Have you ever asked yourself what the meaning of life is? Maybe in a quiet night, maybe after a painful loss, or during those moments when everything's spinning. But nothing makes sense. It's one of the oldest questions humanity has ever asked. Religions, philosophies, ideologies, everyone tries to answer it. But Nietzsche, as always, dares to take a different path. He doesn't give an answer. He undoes the question. Nietzsche says, life has no meaning, and that's not a tragedy. It's a gift. It's freedom. We live like the world owes us some kind of ready-made purpose, something external, fixed, guaranteed. We expect life to come with an instruction manual, with answers, with a divine mission or some cosmic plan. But Nietzsche comes in like an earthquake. He pulls the ground out from under us and shows us there is no universal, fixed, absolute meaning. Life, on its own, has no built-in purpose, not because it's worthless, but because it's wide open. It's pure freedom. Meaning isn't given. Meaning is created. And that's where Nietzsche flips the game. He's not trying to make you feel hopeless. He's trying to wake you up. Because if life doesn't come with a pre-written purpose, that's not a reason to quit. It's a reason to create. You don't need to find the meaning of life. You need to build a meaning that makes your life worth living. That's what makes this idea so powerful and so challenging. It puts the responsibility in your hands. You are the author. You are the creator. You are the one who gives life meaning. But here's the catch. That takes courage. It means letting go of crutches. It means no more waiting to be saved. It means dropping the victim mindset. No one's going to hand you a why wrapped in pretty words. And Nietzsche knew that realization could hurt. But he also knew that's the turning point. It's in the emptiness that real freedom begins. And you? What are you doing with your emptiness? Are you stuck in it? Or creating something new from it? You can stare into the void and let it swallow you. Or you can use that empty space as a blank canvas. Nietzsche would say, paint, write, live, become. Turn nothingness into something that's yours. Turn meaninglessness into expression. Because that's the real art of living. To create meaning where there once was only silence. The meaning of life isn't something you find. It's something you build, day by day. Choice by choice. Fall by fall. Nietzsche believed in an active, creative, intense life. Not one spent waiting for outside answers, but a life built like a work of art. But what happens when someone can't handle that much freedom? That's where Nietzsche talks about nihilism. The feeling that if nothing has meaning, then nothing matters. It's the kind of emptiness that crushes you, the kind of nothing that paralyzes, when everything seems to lose its color. But Nietzsche also says, nihilism isn't the end, it's the beginning. It's the moment everything false is broken, so you can rebuild with truth. Those who survive nihilism, who walk through that desert, come out stronger, wiser, freer. The absence of a fixed meaning is an invitation to reinvent yourself. Nietzsche believed that humans are capable of becoming more than copies, of breaking old patterns and becoming creators, of values, of purpose, of their own unique way of life. That's the mission of the free spirit, not to live by hand-me-down answers, but by truths they've discovered for themselves. And the beautiful part? Those truths don't have to be universal. They just have to be yours. Life doesn't owe you meaning, but you have the power to give meaning to life. And maybe that's the most powerful kind of freedom, not needing dogmas, not waiting for someone to tell you who to be, not clinging to shoulds, but living with courage, with presence, living like you know time's too short to live anyone else's life. Nietzsche didn't destroy the meaning of life to depress you, he destroyed it to free you. And in place of a universal purpose, he leaves you with the most powerful call of all. Become who you are. There's no mission harder or more beautiful. Life has no meaning, but you have the power to give it one. And maybe that's what makes life so extraordinary. Nietzsche. The greatest challenge is becoming who you are. Are you being yourself, or just what others expect you to be? Have you ever really stopped to ask yourself, who am I, truly? Not your name, not your job title, not the image you built to be accepted, but you, raw, honest, unfiltered. Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the boldest thinkers in history, believed this is the hardest question anyone can ask. That's why he wrote, "The greatest challenge is becoming who you are." At first glance, this sounds simple, maybe even cliché, but if you take it seriously, it can flip your entire life upside down, because it means you're not born ready. You have to invent yourself. For Nietzsche, life isn't about discovering who you are, it's about creating it. We live as if we're supposed to find ourselves somewhere out there, like one day the truth of who we are will just magically appear. But Nietzsche gives us a wake-up call. You're not something to be found. You're something to be built. You weren't born with a fixed identity. You were born with potential, with raw energy. And your deepest responsibility is to shape that potential into something real, your truth. But why is that so hard? Because everything around you pushes you in the opposite direction. From the beginning, you're taught to fit in, to follow, to obey. You learn what's right and wrong, what you're supposed to feel, think, and want. And slowly, without even realizing it, you become a version of yourself that's socially acceptable, but internally empty. Nietzsche called this the domestication of the spirit. It's what happens when you trade authenticity for approval, and you lose yourself trying to belong. Becoming who you are takes courage, the courage to unlearn, to question what you've been taught, to say no to the easy path and yes to the honest one. Nietzsche didn't believe we're born good or bad. He believed we're all unfinished projects, and life gains meaning when you take ownership of that project with creative responsibility. Strong spirit is someone who takes control of their own existence and says, I'm going to become someone I can be proud of. But that means facing some serious fears. Fear of disappointing people, fear of being wrong, fear of standing out, fear of being rejected, simply for being real. Nietzsche invites us to walk through those fears, to let go of the need for approval, to realize that living for others is a slow death, because nothing suffocates more than being disconnected from your true self. Becoming who you are isn't about finding a model to follow. It's about destroying the models. It's realizing that there is no universal ideal, no blueprint for who you're supposed to be. What exists is you, and everything you have the power to become, with your light and your shadows, with your pain and your strength, with your beautiful, messy, one-of-a-kind complexity. Nietzsche believed every human being carries creative potential inside them, and the greatest achievement is owning that potential and shaping it into something real. Authentic living isn't easy, but it's alive. It asks you to make hard decisions, to break old patterns, to look in the mirror and say, "This is me, and I'm going to follow this path, even if it's the harder one." And you? Are you living as your true self? Or just playing the part people expect of you? Drop a comment below. What do you feel you need to let go of to finally become who you are? Nietzsche didn't want you to be better than others. He wanted you to be whole, honest, real, not a reflection, but a source. And that requires a lifelong process of reinvention, of internal cleansing, of existential courage. Becoming who you are is the greatest adventure of all. There's no script, no manual, no final destination. It's a journey of expression, of creation, of transformation. Nietzsche believed that, in the end, only one question really matters. Were you true to yourself? If the answer is yes, then your life was great. Even with the mistakes, the stumbles, the restarts, because nothing is more noble than a life lived with authorship. So, what's your next step in becoming who you are? Nietzsche knew life is art, and you're the artist of your own soul. The question is, will you keep living the life they handed you, or will you finally start creating your own? To truly live, you need risk, intensity, and passion. Are you truly living, or just trying not to die? Be honest. How many of your choices come from a deep, vital impulse, and how many come from fear? How often have you thrown yourself into something with courage? And how often have you hidden behind the word security? Once again, Nietzsche says what most people are afraid to hear. Live dangerously, or don't live at all. Yes, it's a provocation, but it's also a wake-up call. An invitation to leave behind a lukewarm existence and dive headfirst into what's real, even if that means falling, getting hurt, or messing up badly. For Nietzsche, to live is not to play it safe. To live is to leap. A life that's too protected stops pulsing. Nietzsche believed that life only gains color, power, and meaning when we expose ourselves to risk. The risk of doing something new, the risk of speaking your truth, the risk of walking your own path, even if that means walking alone. To live dangerously is not to be reckless, it's to be fully alive. To lead with your heart instead of convenience. To live with passion, even when the world tells you to play it safe. Safety is comfortable, but passion is transformational. Sure, you can choose stability, predictability, the right path, but Nietzsche would ask you, is that really living, or just surviving? Most people go through life avoiding pain, avoiding failure, avoiding conflict. But by doing that, they also avoid the intensity of truly being alive. Nietzsche teaches that real life means embracing risk as part of the deal, because without risk, there's no reward. Without intensity, there's no depth. Without passion, life becomes an empty routine. Live dangerously is a scream against mediocrity, against blandness, against a soul-dead life. It's a cry for authenticity, for courage, for movement. Nietzsche saw life as a chaotic dance between suffering and creation, between danger and freedom, between the edge and the breakthrough. He didn't want you to hide behind guarantees. He wanted you to be an explorer of your own soul, someone who doesn't just pass through life, but lives with such power that life itself feels it. So why are we so afraid to live with intensity? Because we've been taught to fear mistakes, to fear judgment, to fear failure. We've been trained to look for guarantees, as if those exist, to do the right thing, even when it crushes us from the inside. But Nietzsche reminds us there's no creation without chaos, no authenticity without vulnerability. Live dangerously is also a love letter to life. Nietzsche wasn't some hopeless nihilist, like many think. He loved life, all of it, the pain, the chaos, the risk, the beauty. He believed living with intensity is the only way to honor the present, to treat now as the only moment that matters, to turn this moment into a leap, not a delay. To live dangerously is to live with your senses open, with a vulnerable heart, with your soul on the surface, and that's exactly what it takes to truly be alive. Every great moment in life involves risk. Saying I love you for the first time, quitting a job that drains you, moving to a new city, starting something from scratch, owning who you are. All of that comes with fear, but it also opens the door to everything powerful. So Nietzsche asks you, would you rather stay safe or transform? Because you can't have both. To live dangerously is to trust your own fire, to listen to your gut more than others' opinions, to follow your vision instead of society's checklist, to walk your path even if it's the only one on it. It's to understand that failure is part of it, and that the only true failure is not living at all. Nietzsche didn't want followers. He wanted creators, people who choose to be fire, in a world that rewards the frozen. And you? Are you still putting off real life? Or are you ready to take the leap and risk being fully, unapologetically you? Drop a comment. What bold move do you know you need to make? What leap are you waiting to find the courage for? Live dangerously, or don't live. Nietzsche isn't calling you to madness. He's calling you to freedom, to a life with soul, with purpose, with real intensity. Because in the end, it's not time that measures whether you lived well. It's how deeply you threw yourself into the experience of being alive, and that takes courage. What is a life without greatness? Most people don't die with a scream. They die quietly. They die slowly. They die while still breathing, walking, smiling for pictures, but stopped truly living a long time ago. Nietzsche, with his sharp and honest gaze, saw this as the worst fate of all: mediocrity. Not the kind of hell religions describe, full of fire and punishment, but the hell of a life without depth, without intensity, without transcendence. Mediocrity is comfortable, but it's also suffocating. It shows up as stability, but it's really stagnation. It wears the mask of normal, but underneath, it's quiet surrender. It's giving up on what you could have been. Nietzsche believed there's no greater pain than realizing you lived below your potential, that you settled, that you gave up too soon, that you traded the extraordinary for what was merely acceptable. It's not failure that destroys the spirit. It's the lukewarm life, the life with no fire, no risk, no passion. Mediocrity doesn't mean someone's incapable. It means they didn't dare. Nietzsche never judged those who failed, who fell, who got lost. He admired those who took risks, who tried, who lived with truth, even if they failed doing it. Mediocrity, for Nietzsche, isn't about talent or resources. It's about attitude. A mediocre person isn't someone who can't go further. It's someone who chooses not to, out of fear, out of laziness, out of love for comfort. They settle into repetition. They're content just existing, never blooming. Nothing suffocates more than a life without greatness. So what did Nietzsche mean by greatness? Not fame, not money, not status. Greatness is intensity. It's living with creativity, courage, and originality. It's becoming who you are, not what others expect you to be. Greatness is internal. It's a fire that refuses to live on the surface. It refuses to settle. It refuses to sell out for scraps of social approval. Mediocrity is living halfway. It's waking up every day and feeling nothing. It's doing everything right, but knowing deep down something's very wrong. Nietzsche saw this as the greatest waste of life, because to live isn't just to survive. It's to transform, to leave a mark, to stretch yourself as far as your soul can reach. So why do so many choose this hell? Because it's easier. Because society rewards conformity. Because thinking hurts. Because creating takes effort. Because standing out draws criticism. But Nietzsche reminds us that comfort comes at a cost, yourself. When you choose mediocrity, you give up your deepest potential. You're saying no to everything you could have been. Nietzsche didn't want a world full of geniuses. He wanted a world full of alive souls, people with courage, people who ask hard questions, people who bleed but don't stay silent, people who choose intensity over apathy. He believed every person has a unique spark, but it only ignites when you're willing to break away from the ordinary. Mediocrity is easy. Greatness is hard, but only one is truly worth it, and it doesn't have to be some huge achievement. Greatness is choosing with authenticity. It's speaking with honesty. It's loving with presence. It's creating with passion. Above all, it's living with the awareness that time is short, and you are one of a kind. Mediocrity is hell, because it keeps you alive on the outside, but dead on the inside. Nietzsche calls you to say no to this golden prison, to take risks, to ask the questions no one wants to ask, to live with fire in your eyes, even when the world around you asks for silence. So here's the question. Are you becoming who you could be, or are you just drifting through the days? Drop a comment. What do you need to leave behind to start? Living with greatness? Nietzsche believed there are only two paths in the end. You either live with intensity, or you slowly die inside a life that was never truly yours. The choice is yours, but time won't wait. No one's coming to save you. Transformation is your job. How many times have you hoped that something, or someone, would pull you out of the pain? Maybe a spiritual answer, a magical second chance, a sudden relief, a forgiveness that erases it all. From a young age, we're taught to hope for redemption. The idea that one day, somehow, it'll all make sense. That something will justify the suffering. That a higher force will wipe our failures clean and set everything right. But Nietzsche, with the kind of honesty most people avoid, says something hard, but freeing. Redemption doesn't exist. Only overcoming does. No one is coming to save you. That's a tough sentence to hear. Because it rips away the comfort of waiting. It shatters the illusion that everything will work out just because it has to. It breaks the belief that some cosmic justice will reward the good and punish the bad. Nietzsche saw this idea of redemption as something born from fear, a comfort for those who can't handle the chaos, unfairness, and unpredictability of real life, but who also can't see the raw potential that exists within it. Waiting for redemption is putting life on hold. It's sitting on the sidelines, hoping something outside of you will create the change. It's holding on to passive hope, when what life actually demands is active action. Nietzsche saw this as dangerous, because someone waiting to be redeemed puts themselves in the role of the victim. And a victim doesn't create, doesn't break patterns, doesn't grow. They just suffer. That's why Nietzsche offers something much more powerful and way more challenging. Don't wait for redemption. Overcome. Overcoming is the only real path to transformation. Nietzsche believed in the deep inner strength of human beings, the ability we have to face our pain, our failures, our shadows, and still move forward, still choose to grow, still choose to reinvent ourselves. not because we're promised a reward, but because life is only worth it when lived with courage. Overcoming doesn't deny pain, it moves through it. It's easy to want to erase pain. What's hard is using it as fuel, as the foundation for a stronger version of yourself. Nietzsche believed pain is part of life, and that true strength is born through it. But only when we choose to let go of the victim role. Overcoming is that choice. The act of getting back up, not because someone lifted you, but because you refused to stay down. Redemption comes from outside, overcoming comes from within, and that changes everything. What Nietzsche offers is a philosophy of radical responsibility. He asks you to stop blaming others, stop waiting for recognition, stop wishing the past could be rewritten. He says, use what happened to you, transform it, create something from it. That's the essence of a strong spirit. Someone who turns pain into strength, failure into learning, and falling into momentum. But listen, overcoming doesn't mean forgetting. Nietzsche isn't telling you to erase what hurt you. He's telling you to integrate it, to face it, to honor your pain, but not be ruled by it. To say, yes, that happened, it hurt, but it doesn't define me. I am more. Overcoming requires what Nietzsche called will to power. That deep, life-driving force within all of us. The energy that pushes us to grow, to evolve, to affirm ourselves, even in the chaos. To overcome is an act of will. It doesn't happen by accident. It's not automatic. It's a choice, a battle, a commitment. And that's why so few take this path. Because it doesn't offer shortcuts, but it does offer something way better. Freedom. Nietzsche didn't believe in magical redemption, but he absolutely believed in human beings capable of rebirth, without needing to die first. Every time you refuse to be defined by your pain, you overcome. Every time you rise without applause, you overcome. Every time you choose to create a new path, even without guarantees, you overcome. And that's bigger than any redemption story, because it's real, because it's yours. Redemption is a promise made to fear. Overcoming is an answer born from courage. Nietzsche hands you that key. Now it's your turn to decide, will you keep waiting to be saved, or will you rise and become your own rebirth? If this content spoke to you in any way, give this video a like. It helps us reach more people who are also looking to live with more awareness. Share it with someone you know needs to hear this today. Sometimes, just one sentence can spark real transformation. And of course, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any new reflections. Here, philosophy isn't decoration, it's a tool for awakening. Thank you so much for being here, for taking time for yourself, and for walking with us on this journey of thought, courage, and self-discovery. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, and don't forget, become who you are.